guys, Janine here with another Elm Street review for you. As you know, our It's a Wonderful podcast patrons voted for me to cover a horror franchise this month. I had a lot of gaps in quite a few horror franchises, so I had put up a poll and they voted for the Elm Street films. So there are quite a few of these that I hadn't seen. So I was really excited to kind of get into this franchise. So now I am on movie number 5, A Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child. So kind of after 4, I already knew this franchise was going off the rails a little bit, and this one is definitely driving with no wheels. It's really all over the place. The plot and the story just kind of seem very disjointed, very confusing, like they're just throwing a bunch of crap out there and seeing what sticks. You know, they're bringing in the Amanda Kruger kind of backstory and leaning into that as kind of the main theme of this story that was introduced in Dream Warriors. They're trying to come up with another way to bring Freddy back. So, you know, I appreciated a little bit of the creativity in the fact that the Alice character that became our final girl by the end of the 4th film, she's pregnant now, and so Freddy is getting to her and her friends through the baby's dreams, because I guess, you know, babies in the womb can dream. So that's how he's able to get to her and her friends and get her into the dream world while she's still awake. Just the whole kind of concept of her unborn child being able to talk to her and interact with her and being this little kid that she talks to was a very weird concept. It just felt very awkward, and especially I think everybody knows the scene of the little kid, Jacob is her son, talking to her, and they have him in the Freddy makeup, and he's kind of talking about how he wants to learn from Freddy, and he does a little Freddy voice. It's so cringy. Oh my gosh, it was terrible. A lot of this movie is cringy. Like I said, we're following the Alice character that kind of ended the 4th film, so I appreciate the continuity of character and kind of story. She did end up with the guy Dan at the end of that movie, so now they're together in this film, and she seemingly still kind of has the same abilities of going into the dream world and stuff like that. So I appreciated kind of starting with some continuity. We get into graduation with her friends, and they all just seem like they're there essentially to die. Like none of them are really special or interesting. You don't really care about any of them. So they're literally just there kind of to die, basically like her friends in the last film. I do appreciate that they did some stuff with the relationship with her dad, because her dad was really shitty in the last film, and to see kind of them have a nice relationship and rapport, and he's working on himself and he's being a lot nicer. I liked that aspect. You know, it was something small, but I appreciated them kind of still acknowledging that and pulling that story aspect forward and doing something with it. So I liked the relationship that she was kind of having with her and her dad, but everything else was kind of a mess. I will say I really liked the kills. I think the kills were probably the best part of this movie. We have 3 great kills with some of her friends. One of them, you know, her mom wants her to be this perfect model, and she's at a dinner party, and Freddy like straps her to a high chair and is stuffing all this food in her face, and her cheeks are all huge, and he's like feeding her pieces of herself. It's so disgusting and so very harshly visual and just very sickening. So definitely a cool death there. Probably my favorite death was the artist character. He's this guy who's writing his own comic book, and you know, I'm sure this probably came out around the time that Take On Me was very popular, because they definitely do a little bit of Take On Me kind of graphics, putting him into this artistic world. Everything's black and white. And Freddy kills him when he turns into kind of like a paper cartoon version of himself, and he's just slicing him like paper and the colors draining out of him. I thought that was a really cool death. And I think, you know, I heard some stuff about like the NPAA really cracking down on this film in terms of the blood and gore. So I think that was a smart death in terms of getting things over on the MPAA, and also having your kill, but having it kind of be less bloodless because it's just like a piece of paper kind of figure, and it's really visually cool and it works with the character. So that was a really cool death. We do see Freddy as Super Freddy in this scene as well, which is also very cheesy. Freddy's skateboarding. The last one he was wearing sunglasses. So at this point, Freddy's kind of become really goofy and he's not really scary anymore. I feel like he was the most scary in that first film. And even in Dream Warriors up to that point, like you could probably say he was still a little bit scary and not as goofy. But he goes kind of full blown in this film where he's getting really kind of ridiculous and corny and cheesy and just not really scary or threatening anymore. So yeah, like, just to talk about another cool death, Dan, he had a really interesting death as well. His car kind of strapping him in, and then, he gets on the motorbike and all the wires start coming through him and coming through his face, and then Freddy's face kind of is made out of wires talking to him and taunting him and throwing out all the ridiculous one-liners. So yeah, I will give the movie just some really cool deaths, but the story choices they were making, really leaning into the Amanda Kruger, that she kind of was the one you had to free her soul so that she could be free to contain Freddy. So many weird ways to try to end Freddy, and this one just felt very convoluted and didn't make a lot of sense, and gave some really kind of unnecessary backstory things that we probably didn't really care about. I think we got enough in Dream Warriors with just kind of his story with his mother and be done with it. But the fact that she's kind of playing this bigger part, and now there's this other kind of layer of having to free her soul so that she can be the one to capture Freddy and all of this stuff, when, you know, there could have been a much simpler explanation to, or a way to get rid of Freddy, but they just really made it, you know, in theory an interesting idea, but just not executed very well, and just felt like too much going on. The last set piece, you know, with all the kind of upside down staircases, by, like, I think it was the artist is called MC Escher, trying to be like that painting, and that whole kind of confusion. I mean, that was kind of an interesting final set piece, but even that kind of went off the rails with the Jacob kid and him trying to copy Freddy and having the face and doing the voice. That was just very cringy. And Freddy kind of coming out of Alice and that whole thing, like he can, you know, he came back because he's inside of you, he gets you, he knows you so well. Like, how is that even a thing? How does he know her well enough for that to be a thing? Like, it just felt so nonsensical. And, you know, they were trying to do some interesting things, but none of it was really fun. None of it made sense. It was just very sloppily put together. And I just did not even have fun with the silliness of this movie. Yeah, just a huge disappointment. Not really much more to say than that. Just really loved it. I thought the kills were really cool, and that's kind of about it. I don't really care about any of the characters. Like, I already wasn't like a huge fan of Alice, so for her to kind of be the lead of this film was just like, and then the rules that they're kind of introducing veer off of kind of what was established. I think the first three films, even the fourth film, still tried to kind of establish the rules that had been put in place in those first couple films, and kept a continuity there. And then 4 kind of tries to push it a little bit with some interesting things that still, I think, worked a little bit. But here, you're just kind of throwing a bunch of crap out there and hoping that it makes an interesting story, when really it's just kind of a bunch of nonsense. So, was not really a fan of the Dream Child. It was just so silly. Her unborn child being this little kid who could talk to her, and, you know, one minute he's running away from Freddy, the next minute he wants to be like Freddy, then he's listening to Amanda Kruger to end Freddy, and it's just all very complicated and too much going on, and you don't care about anybody. And I mean, I could sit here and just go on and on about how just nothing made any sense. And even though it's so cringe and weird, I wish it was a cringe and weird that I could just laugh at and have fun with. So aside from 3 really cool deaths, I just did not have any fun with this movie. I was just very confused and it was just very weird. So yeah, those are my thoughts on The Dream Child. I will be back with another review on Freddy's Dead, the Final Nightmare, I think it's called. I'm just excited to get to a new nightmare because I've not seen that one. It's Wes Craven back on the franchise. It's meta. I'm just doing what I can do and getting through these movies to get to a new nightmare because that's the one I'm most excited about. But yes, I will be back with the Freddy's Dead next sequel. So thank you guys for checking out this review. Of course, you can like, share, subscribe, do all the things on the It's a Wonderful Podcast YouTube channel. We have some really fun other content over here. You can find the show on Twitter at It's a Wonderful One. You can find me on Twitter at JanineDebean_. Check out all the links in the description for our merch and everything else. And thank you guys for checking this out, and I will see you in the next one.